The Apostolic Evangelist, and we're looking at chapter 5, where it talks about types of power evangelism. When working with churches into a target area, it is fulfilling a call of an Ephesians 4:12 to cause a revival or equip and empower. And so the evangelist going into that area would do two things, especially with local churches, because often we are working with local churches. An evangelist goes into a local church to equip the church. They might have an experience with the Holy Spirit, as in Acts 2, which results in that church going out, causing the people to be equipped to mature in Christ, to go out from their church or express the gospel from the church, which is Ephesians 4:12. And so there's the ministry into a local church and the ministry from. An evangelist does both. He causes revival within so there can be an expression without. And so whenever there is types of power evangelism, don't think that the church is to remain neutral or untouched by that gift ministry. So often we think an evangelist is always out there, but in the local church it is vital. So with a church or churches, an evangelist is to preach the message into whatever community that needs to hear the word, but he does it through the local church. And revival to evangelism, experience to expression is essential. So number one, close to your home or town or church, your home church. Know your area you want to impact, and I think we've covered that in the strategy of SMEEK. Could be a 5-kilometer radius, 10-kilometer, or further, or even another town. So establish that. Secondly, the Great Commission is to have 4 definite dimensions, or almost a 4D dimension, because there is your Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and uttermost 4 areas, 4 shockwaves of the gospel being communicated from your local church. Your Jerusalem, as of Acts 6, is your base church. Your Samaria, your Judea is the next area from your Jerusalem area, which is can be a community nearby or another suburb where you want to establish or plant a site church. Your Samaria is your choice, which is a little further. And of course, the uttermost is a 4th one, where people would go, the uttermost extreme. And of course, the uttermost can be across the ocean to somewhere where you'll not visit, say, 5 or 6 times a year, whereas your Judea and your Samaria should be at least be that. So you need to prepare a budget for sustainable sacrifice or reaching out. It's not a project, it's a purpose, it's a plan of God. You just need to strategize this as a battlefield for action. And so even when it's close to your church, practical things to acquire are listed in number 5 on there, which is what we touched on the previous chapter: your sound system, a stage, a venue hire, a follow-up material, booklets, musicians, radio, newspaper, advertising. Those can be sourced and done. When you go further from your church, you need to link up with an apostolic team, which is helpful in other nations. As you find in Acts 21 verse 8 with Philip and Paul, the 7 that were there. You need to conduct revival churches all the time, every time in local church. And doing a 4 or 5 nights, building into the saints, empowering them in the gifts to win souls. You're equipping the saints to do. And so that is imperative even with an outreach. So it's not just the moment of the event, it is actually equipping and building in. So it is important also to go through and build, to tour the town that you're going to go in. Number 3, impact power evangelism. This can be done by churches inviting you to come in and evangelize, where you set up a theme or a series of ministry nights. Satellite evangelism, where you take your platform and you orbit a town, not just being in one location at a stadium, but you orbit in smaller fields around the town. Stadiums are expensive, but when you are mobile and you move around, you seem to touch a lot more people deeper into communities who would not be able to commute to a stadium, which are normally quite far out of town, but fields are in every place in a town or open areas. City Harvest You can involve yourself with the city harvest and the local church. So here you've got a summary. You've got villages, can happen anywhere, market, street corners. In towns, school fields, sports arenas, parks, open spaces. Citywide, suburbs, arenas, stadiums, and fields. So those are areas in which you are able to conduct these outreaches or crusades. There is some information there about GAR, which I call the GAR phenomena, which is good to read. And I believe too that one of the ways of the future of having crusades is where you set up the hand of God coming in. We have done this, where we had one session, which is further on in your notes towards the end, at 10:30 in the morning, where the gifts of the Holy Spirit are taught and how to respond to them. The unsaved don't know the Holy Spirit and they don't know how to respond. So instruction on the gifts and how to, for the unsaved to respond to the Holy Spirit is good. Second session we normally do is around the faith. You've got to build faith. Without faith, all things are possible. When you have faith, all things are possible. And then the third session is always around leadership just before the event at night, because I think in any outreach or any crusade out there, if it's not going to plant a church, why are you having it? Because it is there to establish and plant churches or set up a new church plant or a community site church in an area. And so when you come back around to the fact of this in types of power evangelism, it is simply this. When you keep the principle the main purpose and not the function the main purpose, you're safe. But if you're doing the event for the sake of an event, it's not wise. The main principle of every event with evangelism is to win the lost, to get them to Christ so that they know his purpose. It is to destroy the work of the devil, to liquidate or invalidate the work of the devil, causing sickness to be healed, people to be made whole, emotions set free, and also to seek and save that which was lost. And what is it that was lost? The love and the mercy and the goodness and the kindness and the mercy of God is shown. And the lost are always there, but why? What has been lost is Satan has removed God's heart and grace towards humanity, and that is the principle of the gospel.